the teeth of a killing machine, with a need to bleed you when the light goes green. Best believe I'm in the zone to be. From a yin to my yang to Z. Put a grin on my chin when you come to me, cause I'll win, I'm a one of a kind, and I'll bring death to the place you're about to be. Love the reach of the teeth, put it under my feet. Forging a fire with the long go. Stand next to you, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go. Lord, make me dead before you make me old. I fade on the fear of the devil inside, of the enemy faces in my sight. Aim with a hand, shoot with a mind, kill with a heart like Arctic ice.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a warrior, this is my song.
I am a warrior and this is my song. I'm basking the glow of the rising war. Lay waste to the ground of an enemy shore. Wade through the blood spilled on the floor. And if another one stands, I'll kill some more. Bullet in the breach and a fire in me, like a cigarette thrown to gasoline. If death don't bring you fear, I swear you'll fear these marching feet. Come to the nightmare, come to me. Deep down in the dark where the devil be. In the mall where the jaws and the razor teeth, where the brimstone burns and the angel weeps. Crawl to the gods of across your path, and my silhouette hangs like a body bag. Hope is a moment now long past. The shadow of death is the one I cast. I am a soldier.
Welcome to Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on the show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. We would like to thank those who make this show possible and allow us to bring it to you. Our show sponsors: Warrior Media Solutions, BlueHammer.com, Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation, Graybeard Publishing, and of course, Sheepdog Response. We would also like to recognize some of our favorite nonprofit charities who are doing great things for those who have served this country of ours. Veterans Outdoors, Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation, PinupsForVets.com, and the Lauren F. Bruner USS Arizona Memorial Foundation. To learn more about these nonprofits and how you can donate to their awesome causes, visit our website at www.stewandthenunn.com. All right, thank you, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn. I may be blowing your ears out, man. My meters are going off the charts here, so let me just make sure that I'm not too loud for some of you guys. That looks okay. Hey, John, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, how's it going, Troy? Good to be back, man.
Yeah, good to have you, man. You are definitely starting to fill in as almost a semi-temporary permanent guest host. Appreciate that. Appreciate you willing to do that.
We got to change the name of your show to Stu and the One now, you know?
Just Stu and the Wolf Stew.
Stu and the One. You don't know who that one might be.
Yeah, Stu and the fill in the blank. That's it. But
Stu and the blank.
Yeah, but it's been you a lot lately. Appreciate that. You know, Dave Bellevue used to be on all the time. He did hold the title of the most frequent guest host, but I think you may have passed him now. I don't know. He seems to be busy with something going on. I don't know why he thinks he is, but yeah, I think it's now coming down to you. And again, thank you so much for jumping on and being with me tonight. Good to have you here on episode 300 here on October 6th. Episode 300. We are sitting.
That's a lot of episodes, dude.
Yeah, we are. And you know, there's probably a couple. We probably messed up the numbering a few times, and that's with, you know, a number of shows which we haven't done. Because we've been, you know, we've had to cancel and travel and work and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's we're glad to have you know, have that and be up to 300. We'd probably be like 320, 330, I guess, by now if we would have not had to cancel so many. But thankfully you're with me tonight. We're not having to do that tonight. I had to cancel last week. I was in Texas last week for work, and just knew there was no way. I brought my portable audio stuff with me, which, by the way, I bought a whole new setup after my interview with Scott Mann down in Tampa a few weeks ago. We had some bad audio issues there, and I was like, I got to have a better setup. So I went right out and bought a whole new traveling show package to take with me, and I took it with me to Texas, but ended up not being able to do a show. So, but anyways, back in the regular studio. Hopefully the sound's okay tonight. I'm sure someone in our chat, like Rob or good old Mom who's in there, will let me know if it doesn't sound good. And because last time we had you on, we had some audio. You were cutting in and out.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah, we had to redo the show. We actually pre-recorded that one, and then it was so bad, and you were so graceful, and I was so appreciative because you came back on, and we re-recorded. And actually, I got to say, I think it went better the second time. It was almost like we did a rehearsal. We didn't fly by the seat of our pants, and we actually rehearsed it. When we came back on for the second one that we did live, man, we just knocked it right out. It flowed right through it. It worked really nice. But yeah. So, anyways, good to have you on episode 300. A lot of stuff going on this week. And before we get into that, I want to recognize a couple of our sponsors. Red Rum Sport Fishing, our good buddy Toby, the other half of the show normally. Toby Nunn is down there running that in Cabo San Lucas, and down there crushing it, which is why we've had to have John on and so many folks. Of course, Kermode Outdoor Development Group, Gear for Grunts. Got my Gear for Grunts shirt on tonight, and BlueHammer.com. and Listen 9 Fight Company. So many great sponsors and friends of the show, and want to make sure that that we have recognized all them. But so once we got that out of the way, let's talk about this week and the news and the things happening. What do you got, man? What are you seeing, hearing that you think is something we need to chat about?
You know, the one thing I'd like to find out is if anybody's listening, if they could get us some info that I'm really curious on finding out is this DOD is passing around what apparently is a survey looking at extremism. And this is something that seems to rear its ugly head around a lot. I'm one of the few people you may know that has attended and worked through DOMI, the Defense Equal Opportunity Management Institute, up in Cocoa Beach area. And they're the ones that, is supposed to be looking for this and measuring it and watching for extremism in the ranks. And we're kind of find out what exactly they're after again in identifying. They keep trying to accuse the military of being full of nothing but, extremists, and trying, as you know, I think it was just a little while ago, they tried to redefine what an extremist is in the military. That caused quite a brouhaha. And I'm curious to see if any of our listeners have seen this latest measurement tool or this latest survey and what exactly they may be after. I think this is another dangerous signal.
Yeah, this is. This goes right up there when Millie was up there talking about white extremism and all that kind of stuff, and they brought in this these people that preach all this woke stuff and everything like that in the military. Do you think this is a continuation of that? I mean, they just have some lady that wrote a book that was pretty racist, if you would, kind of just being as their woke advisor.
Yes, the one that was under fire for her past tweets. She's the equality and inclusion advisor for DOD, and is likely going to get removed. That's my estimation. She'll be shuffled off somewhere else because of her anti-racist or her racist tweets, or reverse racism, I guess you could call it. And that should be an interesting foray to find out what the IG is going to publish its results from it.
Yeah, it would be. And, I'm hoping that IGs continue to be outside command influence and allowed to be, to serve in the position IGs are supposed to, which is an independent, unbiased, auditor, if you would, of just things going on. And hopefully we'll get the right answer on that. But yeah, that's I thought that was kind of behind us. But maybe I guess with the leadership of DOD, that probably isn't. It's probably going to stay.
At least not so much leadership of the DOD, but leadership above them, trying to keep an eye on it. or at least keep accusing the military until they do something about nothing.
I mean, you don't consider the DoD leader, the Secretary of Defense, and his office and the administration of that level to be, part of this and complicit with this, if not supportive of this. If this is what we're going to focus on.
I'm sure of it. Absolutely, I'm absolutely certain of it. The civilian leadership, at least.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's interesting you mentioned that, right? Because there's a couple things. Another thing that came out of DoD, which is the Army is releasing. This came out today on the Gateway Pundit. That the Army is releasing a new strategic plan to mitigate the effects of climate change, and it's a new strategic plan for 2023 to 2027, right? And it's includes actions to combat and respond to severe impacts of climate change. Now, it's a 50-page plan based on the goals of the Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, who was such a phenomenal leader in the Mideast, which is why we have ISIS and why all that happened in Syria. But beside that, we'll leave that for a different time. We've talked about that before. But this is what it has to do with and I quote, for today's soldiers operating in extreme temperature environments, fighting wildfires, and supporting hurricane recovery, climate change isn't a distant future; it's a reality. So this whole 50-page document talks about ways of the military to fight and deal with climate change. I don't know. I thought maybe some things are changing. I mean, you're a smart guy, Wolf. You've been around the space and politics for a long time, so I'm hoping you can maybe I'm not looking at this right, but I kind of thought
if you're a climate denier, raise your hand
Yeah.
right here. If you want to start a petition against me about being a climate denier, I'll put my name at the top of the list to sign my own petition against that. It's just ridiculous.
I thought the Department of Defense, which used to be called the War Department, focused on the defense of this country and our assets and everything like that. And the department and the climate was kind of responsibility of the Department of Environmental, whatever, everything else. And there's departments for that, even the Department of State, I guess, things like that. But it was never really like, the DOD, the military branches, where they go are normally there's things on fire, there's things exploding, there are bullets flying.
They're the ones making things on fire, exploding those things.
Right. And there's usually the
purpose.
climate is not even in the consideration of even the most highest level op order, right? In peacetime and
that's you will see that change. You'll
Yeah.
see paragraph number 9, effects to climate change.
I'm God, as you're probably spot on. That's exactly what it's going to be.
It'll be just like the EPA. Before you engage a battle, you've got to do an EPA assessment on after effects of a battle in a particular part of the theater.
Yeah,
that'll be paragraph number 8.
When you artillery, a battery commander, when you fire a salvo of 155 artillery, did you first make sure the red-cockaded woodpecker is not downrange, or any other environmentally endangered species or wild or vegetation? Like, are you about to hit a possible watershed or woodland area where there may be migratory waterfowl? I mean, that's sadly what's. I mean, in the peacetime, yes, because we joke about red-cockaded woodpecker. Anyone that's been to JRTC or Fort Bragg knows that thing is the most despised thing ever, right? But
Camp Grayling in Michigan has the same problem with the woodpeckers up there. Same thing.
Tortoises out west and different stuff, right? So yes, in peacetime, you're not, you're putting drip pans underneath your vehicles when you park, and you're doing this and that kind of stuff. Because yes, we don't want to, while we're training, when we don't have to damage the environment, we don't want to. But when we go to combat, I don't know, burn pits, poo ponds, you name it, right? The environment is nowhere in anyone's vernacular or on their mind. It's like you literally
pure survival.
Yeah.
Surviving the battle is on their minds.
Right. So, in peacetime we have, you have sanitation, and you did slit trenches, and we have Army manuals and guidance and people assigned to make sure that things are set up properly, where a unit is encamping, for lack of a better term, or bivouacking, if I were to date myself, to make sure that everything is safe and people are clean and they're not going to get sick because of unsanitary conditions. But in combat, yeah, you could easily go from wiping your butt to
I'm waiting for the general to turn to the colonel and say, "Colonel, Where's my climate officer? We've heard from the chaplain.
God.
We had the weatherman. Now where's my climate officer?
What is that? Is that the
I'm sorry, sir. He's having an argument over there with our equity officer.
Is that the S8? Is there an S8? Is there an 8? I mean, there's a 7. There's 7 maybe S7 or S8.
Do I hear 11? Do I hear 11?
I mean, a climate officer, right? And then yes, equity officer to make sure that we're killing equitable, right? Do all the soldiers of all races getting a chance to be in combat and get a chance to rest? I mean, yeah. Anyways, so we digress. But this Army climate strategy implementation plan, it is out. The PDF is up there on Gateway Pundit. It's unclassified. You can download it. It is their 50-page report of how the military is supposed to be prepared to fight the climate change happening in this world.
Fighting climate change. We just got through setting up how do we battle in space. Now we got to fight climate change?
And that's after 20 plus years of fighting on 2 different war fronts, nonstop against an invisible enemy who had no rules, and we had to follow every single one of them. But again, could be a much bigger topic. Yeah, we see this and go, how about we work on resetting and retraining our soldiers? We retrain our special operators, maybe this SF forces, from getting away from door kicking and back into fit operations, right? Maybe we reset our young soldiers and our maintainers and our mechanics on how to properly go through the acquisition cycle and maintain and upgrade and be proactive on our equipment. We start teaching basic fundamentals to all those MOSs who are not infantry. We'll just start with them. That are not infantry, back to doing their normal day jobs and not running con-ops and convoys anymore that they were pulled in to do, or running vehicle checkpoints or gate guards and all that stuff, and maybe back to turning wrenches or fixing computers or whatever it is they did. And then to get our infantry back to their basic tactics and skills that they need for movement to contact and defensive operations and movement to objective and all that stuff too, that wasn't necessarily mount related or urban operations, or past coin, that kind of stuff. You think that is where the leadership of our military would be focusing?
Well, did you see, was it a few weeks ago, it was about a month ago, the one general that came out and said, these requirements that I'm just going to ignore them, all these off, requirements, admin requirements that we've got, just ignore them. They're useless. They're taking away time from our training schedules and stuff. So, who the heck's going to care? Why is it something? And they don't realize, hey, there's a block on their OERs and their fitness reports that say, have you completed this? Boom. If you haven't, there's that negative block. Guess what? You don't get promoted this cycle.
Yeah. That's
Did you guys have a show about that one? Did that one come up on?
No, we didn't. We didn't. I wasn't in the know on that one. It's there's a lot of people that have retired and are retiring and get out of the military, and there's a reason why. Another reason why Rob just brought it up. Let's talk about our Navy SEALs getting all kind of negative press in the last 24 hours because someone put a video out of taking Navy SEAL candidates, BUDS candidates, and hitting them with CS gas and making them sing happy birthday,
making them cry, making SEALs cry.
And now it's turned into a news article, which is oh, how dare we make it hard on our Navy SEALs to make them cry because if they went in and kick and haloed into a foreign country in Africa or Middle East to take out a terrorist or to extract and save maybe some Americans, nobody there's going to make them cry.
Tim Kennedy had a great comeback to that when that got posted up. Tim Kennedy went and made a long post and talked about all the things that are going to happen when you're in training for some of these kind of operators. There's going to be crying. There's going to be hazing. There's going to be physical and mental hardships. There's going to be a lot of things that you're just not, and nobody else is going to endure. That's a requirement. That's what we do to prepare our guys for combat. I'm sorry, guys. That's just the way it is. Yeah,
we call that train harder than you fight. That's kind of the basic concept. And I've carried that forward in coaching youth hockey and many other things I've done. You train harder, even in my own employees and what I do, train harder than you fight, right? You make it harder so when we have to fight, it's not as bad and we're not learning lessons. And you know what that leads to? And you know this, Wolf, for our people listening and watching, that leads to hopefully more saved lives on our side because we were prepared, over-prepared, if you would, and for any kind of contingency. And we threw everything we could at ourselves in peacetime or in training when lives weren't being lost. to prepare for this and be ready and not have to make split-second decisions with little or no knowledge or experience to base that on. That's the whole concept. So, showing the intestinal fortitude to sing happy birthday. Guess what? Let me let someone in. Maybe if you're not from the military or this offended you because you saw it, let me let you in a little secret. I can only speak for the U.S. Army. I cannot speak for the other branches. But every soldier that goes through basic training goes in the gas chamber, and they have to take their mask off and speak or sing something to force them to ingest CS, nerve gas, tear gas, into their lungs so they can know what it feels like, so they can understand and be prepared. So if the first time they ever experienced it on a battlefield, they'll kind of know, hey, that pot is hot. I'm not going to touch it again. Every soldier, even those that were little supply clerks, cooks, mechanics, I don't care what they did. If they went through basic, they sucked in CS gas, and they probably did it with laughing drill sergeants. And nowadays they sit outside the CS chamber with the video waiting for them to run into trees.
Well, that's where the photographer for the yearbook always placed himself,
Right.
was at the exit point, so that he could get the very best pictures to put in your yearbook at the end of training.
Yeah, of all the snot and every other liquid coming out of your body, out of every orifice, as you ran full speed into a tree and knocked your ass out. That's what happens.
It is funny. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Funny.
It's right up there. It's right up there with watching your kids come out of getting their wisdom teeth taken out and videoing that. It's at the same level.
It's like giving your best friend a hot pepper and he doesn't realize it, and when watching the reaction.
Yeah, you tell him it's a baby carrot. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, again, it's just someone's complaining about this. It's like, I mean, at some point, we're going to get back into our Department of Defense. We're going to get back into our military leadership. I'm hoping there's an undertow of leaders still staying in the military that are not running for the door justifiably, that are just waiting their turn to get back in positions of influence and authority, and the leadership changes in that five-sided building so that we can get back to training the most lethal and having the most lethal military on the planet that can defend us and all of our allies and of our interest, right? Either here or abroad. That's what.
Isn't some administrations just don't seem to understand lethality is the point of defense?
Yeah.
Right? They don't seem to understand that should be your focus, is preparing. How do you defend against it?
War is ugly. It's horrible. It is disgusting. It shows you the worst of people, of humankind, but it also shows you the best of humankind can come out of it. If you don't believe me or have a concept of that, luckily for you, for those watching or listening, you can go on the internet right now and pull up through Twitter and a number of things and look at everything that they're finding happening in Ukraine and all the combat operations that are happening. If you've been asleep the last 20 years and didn't see what was coming out of Iraq and Afghanistan, it's happening right now in Ukraine. Our good friend Chad Robichaud just came back from over there again, helping uncover 1,000 buried bodies, mass graves that the Russians just murdered Ukrainians. Guess what? You can see all the footage there right now without having to risk yourself to see how horrible it is. War is not meant to be kind or friendly or PC or soft, touchy, pat you on the ass kind of stuff. You are doing what is against the core DNA of anyone with ethics and conscience, and that is take the life of another human being, and you do it with extreme prejudice in any way you can to make sure that they're gone and you're not.
Have you seen the pictures of the bodies that the Russians have left behind of their own soldiers? That as they retreat, they're not even taking their comrades with them. I can understand not taking the time to police up their equipment and stuff, but they're just leaving bodies strewn all over the place. And they're just left there to rot out in the open where they fell.
They don't care. I mean, remember when when they first went in, they were talking about the mobile crematories, and they brought the Russians brought in the. I'm sure those things were overloaded right away. What are the estimates? Do you know what the current estimates are? How many? Somewhat accurate estimates of how many Russians have been lost? I thought I heard 50.
It's approaching 75 to 80,000.
Okay.
The last hard numbers I saw were over 55, and I think it's upwards of 75 or 80,000.
Yeah, I remember the 50 to 60 number not too long ago. But yeah, I mean they're just leaving them out there. I mean, war is absolutely horrible. So you want to train our people to be ready for the most horrible thing in the world. You don't want people to be shell shocked, if you would. You don't want people to have a mental and need a safe space to go to when they see a body grotesquely ripped apart by explosive or bullets or whatever. right? They've got to be able to handle it. You compartmentalize that and you move on. So, focusing on the climate and how the military is going to affect climate change, focusing on how the military is going to address wokeism and the supposed rampant racism that everyone claims it happens in the military, and not focusing on our basic fundamentals, getting back to basics, is not going to be good for us in the short haul. But like I said, I hope there are people staying in the military that can eventually be in positions of authority that can start to get this Department of Defense back on track.
Of all the places I've ever worked, as you know, Troy, I've been a reservist and a guardsman, as well as working in the civilian world for a very long time. The military, by far, by magnitudes of by far, is the least extremist, least racist, least or most tolerable, most tolerant places I've ever been. Every command, every unit, it doesn't matter. They don't play those games because nobody wants to be the one that's, complaining about this foxhole buddy just because he's of a different color, or he's not from Tennessee, or he's from Texas. None of that goes on. Nope. They might have some personality differences. That's just because one idiot to another one. But other than that, that's it.
Right.
The military does not stand for that stuff at all.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people this all the time. Companies hire these diversity coaches and HR groups bring in EO teams, and it's all about promoting diversity. I've been saying it for years. You're not going to find a more diverse organization, private or public sector, in the world than the U.S. military. Right? You and I have both experienced it, and as has anyone else that's served in any branch. Whether you cram them into a hold on a ship or a submarine, or in the back of a LAV in the Marines, or in a barracks in the Army, or whatever it is, right? You bring in someone from Alabama, someone from Chicago, somebody from Arizona, someone from Delaware, maybe someone that's not originally not from this country, like Toby from Canada, and you put them in a squad together, and they have to learn to live, get along, eat, shit, sleep, everything together, and even have their lives depend on each other. You will not find a better example of diversity in the workforce than the U.S. military, and they make it work, and they've been doing it for hundreds of years. They don't have the problem. There's other assholes, yes, on both sides, of all colors, of every type, of every gender. Yes, by the way, only 2 genders, but yeah, there are. But that's life, and those are the odds you're going to have, because there's so many of us on this globe, or 320 million in the U.S. You're going to have 1%. They're going to be in the military. They'll flush themselves out. Usually, they'll get flushed out. It'll kind of handle itself. Luckily, there's enough policies and guidelines and decent rules in place to help police that up and not let things run rampant and turn toxic. But it does happen, just like it does in workforce, just like it does with clergy or with cops or with whatever. Bad people get into the system. Hopefully there's things that catch most of them and filter them out, or is a way to catch them after the fact. Sorry, I just ranted to you about something you totally
rant
agree
on,
with.
rant off.
Yeah, you totally agree with. Anyways, let's get on something. We've talked to military a lot. What else do you got? Let's talk about something. We're 30 minutes in already. We spent the whole time.
Wow, it moves fast.
It does.
You were talking about some of the changes that's coming up in the election. That's 34 days out.
32.
32 days out from the next election. One thing that I'd like to talk about and point out is something that's made the headlines several times this week alone, is the shift in the Hispanic vote. As it's moving toward the right, and it's going to be shocking. There's been about a 21-point change since 2016, maybe a little bit more, much of it attributed to Trump and his policies. And continuing that theme, the Biden policies are only forcing it to be accelerated and in probably much greater numbers than a 21-point shift coming up in November. They're seeing that, for example, in Florida, as an example, that DeSantis has a double-digit lead in the Hispanic vote alone in the shift, and he is up probably better than 11 points over Crist, and in the general population as well, he's got at least an 8-point lead on Crist coming up. So that's a very insurmountable lead that he is going to have, and it's showing up in other races as well. I'm told by a top pollster that they're even seeing shifts in the African American vote, that the percentages of the upwards of 85 or 90% that the Democrats usually have is shrinking down into the 80-85 level, due to the policies and how the population is seeing it not work at the current time. Asians are doing another shift. They've shifted back and forth several times over the last 20 years or so, but they're seeing another one to the right among Asian voters. And this pollster, who does it for many of the leading entities that you see reporting on polls, is telling me this directly. They say that it's going to be far more than what they're measuring or what they're reporting on in the major media.
Yeah, it's funny you mention it. I saw watching a Democratic aligned commentator yesterday in the news say that in 2020, from I think previous elections or something, that the GOP had a like a plus. I think 2020 was a or maybe it was 2016, might have been 2016, had like a +6 from previous like times of Hispanic votes towards the GOP. And this was a poll. This was a I forgot one of the major polls, right? They did this thing where it like +6. This same organization did a poll recently, and it's now showing +56, +56 above
56?
Yeah, from
on general ballot.
Yeah, from 6 to 56 of Hispanics aligning with GOP and voting for GOP. And I think what you're gonna, I think we're seeing, I think we've seen some of it now. And you're way more into politics than I am. I just dip my toe into it and act like I know what I'm talking about. But what I have noticed is that, and I've been saying this for a little while, is that, all these pollsters, we know I've had a number of pollsters call my house all the time. I don't answer the home phone, but my wonderful wife does, and she messes with them and plays with them and then gives me the feedback. So I take some of my knowledge from there. But they call, like anything, pollsters will change. They ask maybe just college students, maybe they hang out a certain group, or they ask you questions and they realize you're not answering the way they want. They just, the line goes dead. That happens at my house a lot. So they
hang up on you for not answering the right way.
Yep. Or once they find out.
Sorry, can't count that one. Call was not completed. That one doesn't count.
That's exactly how they do it. And
wow.
And I've taken some of this feedback and given it to our good friend, our good buddy, Mike Caputo, because there's been some stuff in the New York area that are tied to friends of his, and I've given him some insight of what's happening, so he knows how they're jockeying. But anyways, I think what we're seeing is what we're going to see. What we're seeing a repeat of 2016, and that is that the pollsters think if they say it enough, that and they make up lies and skew the numbers, that the people just okay, go along with it, which is what caused the shock and awe, if you would, of 2016 and how Hillary didn't win. Everything was in the bank. They thought she had it. It was no way she could have lost it, which is what led to 4 years of Russia, and it had to be collusion. It had to be this. There's nothing else that could explain how Trump won. I think we're going to see the same thing, and I think some of the mainstream are already starting to see that too, because they go all positive. The only way they say anything negative or disconcerting is if they know they're in real trouble, and we're starting to see them say that, saying that both houses are at risk and so on and so forth. I think this election in 32 days could blow the numbers out of the water of what anyone anticipated, just like 2016 did. And even 2020, right? I think it's going to be the minority votes, the women votes, the number, the counties, and I take it down to the county level that voted supposedly for Biden in 2020. I mean, all those when they compare the points, like this guy won it by so much over the other one. I think that stuff is going to be so thrown one way. Honestly, I think there's going to be the side that loses is going to come out saying, "Oh, it's got to be all fraud. It's all got to be stolen. There's no way it was this bad," because they're all they're drinking from the same Kool-Aid, and they all believe these pollsters and mainstream media who are just telling them, "No, you got a chance. No, you're going to win," and all this stuff. When the reality is, I don't think they have a snowball's chance in hell. I mean, I think it's going to be a blowout.
I'm a little more pessimistic than that. I'm basing that on something I read today on Real Clear Politics, who said that the control of the Senate is going to come down who wins in Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and Pennsylvania, and whether they can take, if the Democrats can take at least two of those races, then it will come down to a nearly 50-50, 51-49 sort of balance in the Senate from those. The House, House has pretty much given up on that. It is going to change. They know that. Right now, it's a fight for the Senate. That's where they're pouring their money in, is the fight for the Senate. I don't think they've got any designs on trying to save the House. What they need to try and do, and what they're attempting to do, is save the Senate, and they're focusing on the Georgia race, the Arizona race, and Pennsylvania. If they can pull those three in, then they will have at least a shot of keeping a lock on the Senate. And basically, what we're coming down to is a deadlocked administration for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why they're focusing on that when you look at those names that are up, right, for the Democrats that are up for reelection. But I think, I think there's some they're counting. Obviously, Schumer's still going to win New York, right? But I think Maggie Hassan, I think Don Bolduc has a chance against her in New Hampshire, right? I also think that, if I look at some of these Vermont or.
Well, they said Hochul has a very good chance of losing New York. That she is not going to be retained as the governor because.
Oh yeah, Hochul, yeah. But I'm talking for senators up for reelection. I think Patty Murray in Washington is at risk. I think they want to still call that light blue. I think that could be a shock. I also think New Hampshire could be a shock. I think Don Bolduc could pull out a win over Maggie Hassan, right? I look at some of the other. Illinois is going to go stay with Duckworth, right? Maryland's going to keep Ben Holland, right? Some of those are going to happen. Colorado, Michael Bennett, he could lose. I think there's a few that they're.
He has a shot of losing. Bennett has a shot of losing.
Yeah, I think there's a few that are not Arizona, Philly, Georgia that could flip. Washington, New Hampshire, Colorado are on those. Maybe someone else could come out of the woodwork, but I think those have a good chance of flipping too. I don't think it's going to be I think those have a shot. But when you look at House reps and that kind of stuff, I mean there's some up for there. When you look at the Republicans up for re-election, I think all those are pretty solid. I also think some of the pollsters and Dems are hoping to knock out people that are coming up for there in some of those states, but I think some of those aren't. So I don't know. We'll see.
I'm on the House side. I'm not aware of any race that is going to flip from Republican to Democrat.
No,
I could be wrong. There probably is one or two out there, but I have not seen any reporting that indicates anybody's expecting that at this point.
No, I would agree. Yeah. So it's, maybe, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that close. I really think that the pollsters and like we've seen, I just look back at 16 and 20, man. And the pollsters and all that stuff have been consistently wrong and actually worse. And they're wrong by bigger and bigger margins the last two major elections. I don't think they've gotten any better. I think they're still too full of themselves and thinking they can just bamboozle the American people into just nodding their head and going along with whatever that they say is going to happen. That they're going to be like, oh, you're saying he's going to win? I guess I'll vote for him. I think the American people, as they look at their wallets, as they look at the warnings in the heating bills, when they look as the gas prices climb up, when they look at what happened in Afghanistan, and they look at where this economy and country is going, and the stock market and everything else, they're not towing. I don't see them towing a D line like they think they're going to. But
the recent polling that I've seen, like the two names that I read this morning are escaping me, but they definitely show that abortion and climate change in those are like number 7 and number 8 in the priority list, and the numbers combining those don't even come close to the next one above them. That 87% consider the economy, inflation, and the others up in the 70-80% saying that those are the ones that they're most concerned about. And the Dems are going to lose on those two topics by themselves. Given how bad it is. And with the gas prices going up now again, with the Saudis saying we're going to cut 2 million barrels a day of production, there's no way that they're going to be able to make that up by releasing oil out of the petroleum reserve.
10 million barrels, and you're taking us down even farther, right? Then we're at our lowest level. What did I see? I saw it the other day. We're at our lowest level since I thought it was 1940 something. But maybe it was, but we're like at a level now, which, the whole idea of the strategic reserve is for that. It's an emergency reserve for us. We're selling it to freaking other countries, right? We've been selling it to other countries. We've been tapping into it, and it hasn't made a difference yet. It's like, you have your food in your pantry, And then you may have a food closet or somewhere else in the basement where you have your other rations in case something goes bad. You maybe have that extra case of water, that kind of stuff. That's essentially what we're doing. We've got a pitcher of water in the sink or in the refrigerator, and we're taking our emergency bottles of water from the basement, and we're giving those out or drinking those up and using that to water the plants. I mean,
and replenishing it is going to cost us twice as much as it did to put it in there to begin with.
so I heard it last night, right? President Trump, when he was here, wanted to replenish the strategic reserve at $24 a barrel, and Schumer and the Democrats shot that down and said they wouldn't support it, not going to happen, blah. Right now, it's $100 a barrel. That's what it would cost to replenish.
4-to-1 difference.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and that, you wonder where all of our money goes. You wonder where that 31 trillion in our deficit spending has gone. Well, it's stupid crap like that they pull. Somebody doesn't understand economics.
Basic economics. Yeah.
Basic supply side economics.
Right.
Econ 101.
Yep. So, these polls. What are your thoughts on the polls? Again, you're much tighter than this. Do you share my assessment that I think they're just way off, or do you think? I know you say you're a little bit more pessimistic. Do you think they're closer?
Yeah, we're getting ready to work on some polling for my company, and yes, I think that they're having trouble, as you mentioned, getting to the actual answers that mean something. I think that's finding it even harder than it did back in 2016. That's why the polls were so far off on what happened there. I think in 2020, the polls were considerably off as well in a different direction, or they were flat out, lied about. I don't know. I didn't work with them as much back then. But right now, I think they're going to come up with a shock is what they call the hidden conservative. And what they're saying is that independents are the ones that are driving it because they're the ones that could go either way, and they're not willing to reveal that maybe I'm going to vote for conservatives this time. They just don't want anybody to know about it, but yet they're leaning that direction.
Independents have always made the difference, right? You got the people that watch MSNBC every day, or the people that watch Newsmax or OAN every day are going to vote the way they are. There's no one's going to change their mind, right? It's always been the independent that has made the difference, and where you lean. And those are the more pragmatic, if you would, moderates, the ones that are saying, hey, I want to really learn the issues. I'm not all in because you say so or because someone talking head tells me to. And yeah, I would agree. They're kind of weighing them. That's what came out in 2016. Were independents that came out and said, I got to give this guy a chance. I'm not voting for Hillary, right? That's how I won. That's how Trump won. I think that the same thing's going to matter. It's what happens in every national election. You've got to win those people. It's hard to win independents and people that are moderate when you are supporting such extreme things like defund the police and Green New Deals and all the extreme progressive far left socialist agendas. If anything's going to lose this election for the Democrats and possibly even 24, it is because there's no concept of meeting partway in the middle, of collaboration, of reaching across the aisle and working for what's better. It's all my way. We're not even inviting the other side in to talk with this kind of mindset that the Democrats have had for the last number of years.
And we'll continue. It's all based on splitting the country. It's this way or that way. You're not going to meet anywhere in the middle and try and come to a compromise. Neither one of them want to compromise in any way, shape, or form. And I think that's going to be the way it's going to go for the next foreseeable 4 to 6 years at the minimum.
Yeah, they're calling Florida as a battleground state for Republican. Do you really think Florida is iffy?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
No. They're basically saying right now that Florida is written off as red.
Right.
I don't think Florida becomes a battleground state in 22, 20, or 24. 26, well, maybe it will return to that. We'll see.
Yeah.
But for at least 22 and 24, Florida is definitely not a battleground state. I don't even think Ohio is that much of a battleground state anymore. Texas certainly isn't. They don't consider Texas a battleground state.
Right.
It's a key state for sure. But it's not the battleground that they keep saying that it is.
Right. Yeah. 32 days, man. It's counting down. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But I know it's going to be a hot topic as we get closer every week on this show. As we see things happen. So let's start. You mentioned Pennsylvania. I want to jump in there real quick. We got this guy in Pennsylvania the Carhartt sweatshirt wearing Muldoon there. What is your thoughts on what's good? You got him against Dr. Oz, a lot of stuff going on there, and actually Georgia. I mean, when you see these kind of things coming out in the news and these terrible accusations and all this kind of stuff, that's when you know that people.
What would you do if your son started coming out against you like that? If he started talking about you and going out and spouting off about you and his opinion like that? There's something else going on here for that kid to be going off on Walker the way he is.
Yeah,
I've never seen anything like it.
And Herschel Walker's come out. I mean, this guy's been an icon in the football world for years, and I remember watching him, when he played and stuff like that. And you never hear about any of this, and now all of a sudden it's here, right? It's just like anytime it starts to come out, it's like with Kavanaugh, right? He goes all those years, and all of a sudden when he's up for nomination, now all of a sudden he was raping girls in high school and all that kind of stuff. It's like, really, that's when you just start throwing the bullshit flag. And I mean, I don't know what's going on with this either. Obviously, we all have family members that don't think like we do. Look at Kellyanne Conway, for God's sake, her husband, right? Will they risk, I don't know, a peace in the home just to get their 15 minutes, or because someone is pushing them to influence an election? I don't know. I mean, like any good father, he says he loves his son no matter what. But I gotta imagine it's not going to be a fun time around the Thanksgiving table.
No, and I feel bad for him to have to bring in and be dragging his family into it like this. The Dems are going to push it because they love to see the conflict. They know that it'll drag votes away from him, so they're willing to go that way. If that's what it takes, they'll do it. Period.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But we'll have to see. But Pennsylvania, what are your thoughts on there?
This one has been a tough one. Pennsylvania is an odd duck, and they've also got the fact where they can still vote with the absentee ballots up there because of what the legislature has done. So I don't think there's any way to fix Pennsylvania right now. I do think that it is going to be an exceedingly tight race, and I think it's going to be down to what was it, Stalin back in the day, he who counts the votes? I think it's going to be down to that, and seeing, how are they treating the ballots as they come in. I do believe they are in the early voting stages in Pennsylvania, and that one could be the key state out of all of them, even more so than Georgia, to determine how the election is going to go in November and who controls what. Sad to say, and that includes the governor's mansion as well as their state legislature.
Yeah, it is definitely as key as it was in 2020, and it's going to be a determining factor. But we'll have to see how that goes. Again, I kind of look at any time that one name or one state gets put into the press and all these accusations come out, I take that as a good sign that one side is very worried about the other. But hey, on to some other topics that we're burning right through here. You've been spending a lot of time. You're in and out of Florida. I saw you were there just yesterday, or maybe you're there now. I don't know. You're in and out. How's what are your, our good, we have a number of good friends that live down there. Obviously we talked to them, but what are you hearing? What are you seeing on how the recovery has happened after this terrible hurricane went through there last week?
It's moving very well. Surprisingly, they just reopened a bridge 3 days after they began work on it, in order to get out to the island where it was closed off by the storm. They ran a whole bunch of truckloads of food and other supplies. I saw that Publix was running those in. I haven't had a chance to see a lot of the Waffle Houses and the Waffle House Index, which is a favorite of mine, to see just how good or how bad an area is doing. But I know they're getting electric up. I know they're getting a lot of things repaired as quickly as possible. It's one of the more organized recoveries that I've seen. The body count, I don't think, is going to be anywhere near as high as what they anticipated. I believe it's up over 100, which is tragic, and it's sad to see. Hope that it had been much lower than that. But given the ferocity of the storm and how quickly it moved in and changed direction, I'm glad it's not much higher than that, like it could have been. Like when they said the day the storm hit that they expected several hundred dead, or several hundred were confirmed dead. I don't think they're going to get that high. I think if they get to about 120 or so, that's what may, unless they find some hospital buried or something, I think that's what they're going to end up with, which is way, way less than it was expected to be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially when, like, say, this, Tampa was preparing, everything was heading to there. In fact, I saw an interview with a couple that had evac to Fort Myers. That was their evacuation location from Tampa, and then, of course, that thing just took a hard right turn and just nailed Fort Myers and whole area. Um, it yeah, I mean, there are people out on the island and all that kind of stuff that it hasn't been higher because just people were thinking it was going to be going by, and they would get some wins and stuff, but everything was all the models and everything, right, was nonstop on Tampa. That's where it was. Tampa was about to get
They
hit.
weren't even in the cone of certainty until about 16 hours before the storm actually hit.
Right.
And by then, it was too late for them to evacuate out of the area adequately.
Yeah.
They could have gotten off the barrier islands at the very least, but even then, that was going to be very difficult to do.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that. I know I have family and we have friends down there that are recovering. We have a friend of ours that lost his house. I mean, that kind of stuff. But hopefully things move along well and people are able to start rebuilding and so on and so forth. But
something I saw this evening pop up that was really interesting is the problem they're having with all the electric vehicles that are as they rust, as they corrode after being submerged in the water, and they dry
like
out,
Teslas
they automatically combust.
Yeah, like lithium batteries don't like salt water, I guess. Who knew, right? Yeah.
And who wants something like that? I mean, it's as they dry out, and these cars are sitting there that have been submerged for days, and all of a sudden they start lighting on fire, and nobody's around them, and they're not, trying to be started. I would not want that headache.
Man,
I know that my old cars are not going to just suddenly, sprout on fire just because they got wet.
No, California better hope that the typhoon never hits them, or Maryland, New York, Massachusetts, and all the other states up on the East Coast that are now adopting these electric-only policies by 2035. I guess they're counting that by doing that, they're going to positively affect climate change. There'll never be hurricanes again. I'm assuming that's what they're thinking, right? But yeah, that's lithium batteries and salt water. I think any battery, much less a lithium, have always been known not to do well when mixed together. You could kind of look at it like a Mentos and a 2-liter bottle of Coke. Probably not going to happen too good. So
Mentos and Coke, Teslas and water.
And they're showing them. The firefighters have to be specially trained to do this. I mean, they are fighting these fires on these vehicles. It's not like just putting out a gas fire. It's like an electrical versus like in your own home, right? You fight an electrical fire different than you fight some other kind of a gas fire, a material fire, that kind of stuff.
And you almost can't smother them. It's not like another chemical fire where if you remove the oxygen, they quit burning. Mm-mm. These are not doing it that way. I don't know what they can do special to put one of those fires out.
Probably foam or some kind of special chemical that is probably harmful for the environment. Just saying. I'm just guessing. I don't know. But yeah, that is happening down there. Hey, what else is and also the president was down there dropping F-bombs like he was back in charge. And Governor DeSantis shook his hand, was cordial and nice. But it didn't sound like that was reciprocated back as the president, while he had the podium, tried to say that, tried to force the idea that, Governor DeSantis now realizes that climate change is real because Florida got a hurricane. Hey, freaking dum-dum. Florida's been getting hurricanes probably back when the Aztecs and Indians and everyone else was on that island. It was on that, state and Mexico and everywhere. They've been getting long before the first vehicle showed up, electric or gas, right? Hurricanes have always happened. But, Biden had to take it while he had the mic and could say whatever he wanted. But I'm glad the governor took the high road, as I would expect him nothing but to do, and treated him nice and cordial before, the president goes back to Washington.
But it was brief. If you'll notice, it was a very short time together. It was measured in minutes, a few minutes.
Well, one report I heard is right before the hurricane hit, the president called all the mayors of towns, Democrat towns and county executives or whatever, before he called the governor of the state. He called all the Democratic ones first and pledged his support before he called the governor. Kind of backwards. Usually you kind of do it at the state level. They control the assets, the resources, and everything. Those counties, towns, whatever it may be, they are kind of pretty much dependent on the state and or feds to help them out. But yeah, so hey, but you know what? A good thing happened today. Well, good thing if you like smoking pot and got busted by the feds is, I don't know what the number is. I don't know if you know, John, but I guess the president today pardoned every single person who has been charged and convicted of what they call a simple pot violation. Possession, right? So not like, they murdered someone while they were high. They don't get pardoned for that. But
these are federal charges, and most
federal.
of those don't rise up to the level of a federal charge unless it was on federal property. Like, if you're on government property and got possessed or what, possession.
I was going to ask, is it that, or is it they had over, like if they were dealing or were transporting over a certain amount, would that be a federal charge?
That's not simple possession. And possession with the intent to sell, that's not simple possession.
That makes sense, yeah. So do we know how many?
The numbers aren't going to be that high. Most of those kind of charges that are simple possession are going to be either misdemeanors or they're going to be state charges, not federal. That's a different number.
So we don't expect it to be a big number. Was it pandering for votes?
Absolutely. 100%. Let's get the youth vote out. See, I'm in your corner.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering, because I was kind of thinking, what is simple possession? Like you say, it would have to be maybe on a military base, or maybe they were trying to go into the halls of Congress with a nickel bag.
Well, does that include those that have that simple possession in the military? Those are federal charges, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So would that include those that got chaptered or whatever?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Well, they weren't charged.
Or that are in Leavenworth?
But if it was simple possession, if anything, they got UCMJ or non-punitive charges or punishment, it wouldn't be something the president could pardon, right? They're not criminal charges. So, you piss hot, and that's not a criminal charge. You're done under UCMJ. So it would have to be like actual criminal charges. Yeah.
Well, there's plenty of guys that got charged, for possessing in uniform, as you know, not just getting, pissing hot or something, but those that actually had it on their person, like they forgot to take it out of their pocket when they came on the base that they had at their house, that kind of stuff. So could be some of those folks are involved in that. That's something I would like to get a lawyer on for.
Yeah, sure. I'll be interested to see. I'm sure they're going to roll up the numbers, or they're going to come out hopefully in the next day or so to see what the total number is, so we can see, they were just pandering. It was 25 people, or something, right? It's like all this hoopla, and then the president did ask all the governors to also do the same thing for state charges. So I don't think
that's going to happen in the red states. I don't see DeSantis stepping up and say, yes, I'm releasing all my potheads.
Yeah,
I don't see that happening.
I think the governors that would do that already have laws on their books that allow it to be legal in their state anyways. So yeah. And there's a whole bunch more coming up in this election in November, that there's more states that are looking at doing it too. But yeah, so another thing happened today. Did you hear about what happened in New York with a federal judge?
On the gun laws.
Yes, it's obviously very near and dear to my heart. So a federal judge today, the one that heard the case in September, who had to throw it out because it says, you can't bring this case yet because it's not, you haven't been harmed. The laws went into effect. I'm sorry, not in September, in August. He said you can't do this until the law goes into effect. So the Gun Owners Association of America brought it back before him. He heard it last Tuesday. We've been kind of waiting to see what was going to come out of it. And today he ruled, the same federal judge out of Syracuse, who, when he threw it out in August, said, I can't rule on this, but this is unconstitutional, which gave us all a lot of hope. Came out today and said, pretty much that the state of New York, Governor Hochul, the non-elected governor of New York, overreached what the Supreme Court had already said was not legal as per the Constitution. And said, look, you cannot make people keep justifying why they need a concealed permit. You cannot ask them for all the info on any other adult living in their home, including their spouse. You cannot ask them and make you give them your social media info. Pretty much saying all that stuff is a gross overreach of what the Supreme Court already said.
And Times Square is not a safe zone.
Yeah. So
sensitive zone.
Right. What he left in place was, federal, state, local buildings, which was, by the way, already the law anyways. Schools, and so state universities, any public school, but he left in place private schools also on the list for now. And places of worship, except for those who are security or provide safety and security for places of worship, even if they are not, even if they're only volunteers, if that's their charge. So he opened that up a little bit for places of worship, which has been a pretty hot topic here. And in fact, Dave and I were talking on his show today on WBN about that. But he opened that up and said, okay, you still can't carry to those places, but and then he said, and the state of New York, you have 3 days to respond to this, and the next hearing on this to go deeper is October 20th. So now we're looking at October 20th. So now that this was like a quick ruling to say, hey, I'm stopping this. This is unlawful. New York, you have 3 days if you want to try to appeal this or don't agree. Otherwise, the actual ruling is going to come out on October 20th, and we'll see where it goes there. But yeah, this is we knew this was happening. Everyone that I know in this state, both law enforcement, gun owners, all that stuff, we're just waiting for it to come through. It just had to work its way through. I'm glad it's gotten through this quick when you think about this law went into effect September 1st. So, roughly 35, 36 days after we finally got it, where it's like, hey, New York State overreach. You can't be doing this. So a big win today for gun owners in New York, and probably for the whole country, to be quite honest.
Awesome. And Massachusetts had the same kind of ruling earlier this week, where the court there shot down their overreach as well. So that's 2 in a row this week.
Yeah, and they were kind of late in the game, actually, because after the Supreme Court ruling, a number of states that were may issue states, right, where you have to justify yourself, had all reversed that and gotten rid of that. Maryland and a number of others that said, okay, the Supreme Court just ruled it's unconstitutional. We can't have this requirement. That Massachusetts just did it to finally respond to that, because look, the Supreme Court is they set the law of the land, and they said no. They interpret the law of the land, should I say, and they said nope, this is unconstitutional. It's absolutely unlawful. Those states are smart. They're setting themselves up for lawsuits galore if they and from not only from individuals but even the federal government for violating laws. So yeah, big win today for New York. A lot of folks are happy, and all the pot smokers are happy too.
Looking for the wins.
Yeah.
Are you a GOA member?
No, I'm not a GOA member.
Okay, I was just curious, because they seem to be getting a lot of stuff done where normally we would think the NRA or some of those would be out there, USCCA, some of those guys. GOA seems to be the one bringing up all the winning arguments lately.
They are. I'm glad you noticed that. That is absolutely. I am an NRA member, and I question all the time what my money goes to, besides just having them send me more mailings, trying to send me more cheap crap from made in China to add more years on. And I would agree that GOA, we have an organization here called Scope. You have USCCA, a number of organizations. GOA definitely seems to be the one is truly representing the gun owners of America. Yes. I'm probably need to look at my membership. I think I probably need to really consider that, because they seem like a much more viable organization that's doing something besides just hosting big conferences.
Well, I'm an NRA lifetime guy, but I'm looking at, okay, how do I get a GOA lifetime? I think I'd put that sticker up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, hey, did you hear the Russians may be missing something? Did you hear about
something
that?
Long, dark, and hard? And we're not talking Putin.
Yeah, that's not him. He's not any of those things, I don't think. Apparently they're missing, or a submarine, a nuclear missile carrying potential submarine is not in harbor anymore.
Have they checked up in the Chesapeake Bay lately? I think they lost one there before.
They've also lost them deep in the Atlantic, if I remember right, not too long ago, right? They've been known to have them just kind of fall down a big crevasse or something like that. Maybe it was filled with all the opponents of Putin, because he seems to be there seems to be a lot of those people dying weird ways, like falling out of rooftops and getting run over by trains, just crazy ways. That maybe he was just getting rid of a whole bunch of opponents. I don't know, but there is a sub that I guess we kind of consider a threat that seems to be missing right now or not in place. Do you think? I mean, I heard it and kind of thought, okay, is it him? They know we watch him, right? They know what satellites go over. They're not dumb.
That's how the game was played for years, for decades.
That's right. That's exactly. Do you think this is them just trying to keep us on edge, or do you think there's something viable to this?
Well, it's why Zelensky today was asking NATO for preemptive strikes against Russia to prevent them from using nukes.
Yeah,
I think that's the wrong strategy.
I'm not sure that's how it works.
No, I think if we were to strike them, he would have a reason to use nukes.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
no, we don't give him a reason.
Absolutely, yeah. On the same day that after North Korea apparently flew a whole bunch of fighters and bombers along the DMZ and shot a couple more missiles over. A friend told me about that today. I'm like, it's Rocket Man. Nobody's paying him any attention. He does this shit every time. And when he's not in the news cycle, he wants to like tell everyone, "Hey, look, I'm still here," and that kind of stuff. But he's China with Taiwan. You got Russia and Ukraine. I think he finally realized that he wasn't getting any news coverage, or Dennis Rodman wasn't coming to see him anytime soon.
Well, you know what? He had Kamala there looking across the border at him, which she's been to that border more times than she's been to our border. So she's gotten closer to the North Korean border than she's gotten close to any of our borders.
Yeah, yeah, and good graces on that lieutenant colonel. I think it was with her when she was looking through the binos, saying, "Oh, it looks like it's so close," and he was like, "Ma'am, it's 50 meters away." I mean, nice dry wit. Hopefully, he gets to keep his career and should just get promoted immediately. But yeah, what a nice way to be, to have her read between the lines, like, "Hey, dumbass, it's 50 meters. It's right there. That's why it looks so close." Right. But
I would have done it. I would have handed her the binoculars and said, "Well, ma'am, if you look at him through the other end, it looks really far away."
That's right. That's what you should have done. If you turn them around, this is a great photo op. You can show it looks like it's really far away. In fact, once you go down to that tree down there, I'll tell you the story about that, and go walk behind that tree, and you can see how close you can be. Yeah, it's yeah, he did that kind of in response. I mean, the Rocket Man's not feeling love. He doesn't have his BFF, President Trump in office anymore. No one's paying attention to him. Everyone else is getting the news, and he's over there flying jets. And I think we even scrambled U.S. fighters too, if I heard right. Yeah, testing this administration from all angles: Taiwan, Ukraine, North Korea,
Russia a couple of months ago.
Yeah, it's we got. Well, let's talk about this Nord Stream 2. I want to hear there's a lot of theories on who's responsible. What do you think the most realistic is?
I think the most realistic is that the Russians blew it. I really do. I think they did, even though I think they wanted to use it as an excuse. I don't think anybody else. There's no way somebody's going to convince me, even though they're 17 miles apart. I don't think anybody's going to say that both separate lines blew that close together.
Oh, someone blew it up. Yeah, there's no doubt that it was because.
Well, there were some saying no, this was a maintenance issue. Now, I'm sorry, you're going to have a really hard time convincing me of that one.
Well, there's no
unless they were doing some kind of maintenance work on both lines that were similar that failed. That's the only way you could do that.
Well, I think Sweden picked up on some sensors. They picked up the explosions, right? And unless there's someone firing up a spark down there underwater, there's if anything, they'd pop a leak, then the stuff would just start leaking. There would not be an explosion, right? That takes heat, fire, kind of stuff. So definitely an explosion, definitely a sabotage. I mean, I've been going back and forth. Like, one, is the U.S. responsible because we have on record a video of President Biden saying a few months ago or several months ago, before Russia invaded, that if Russia invaded Ukraine and crossed the border, that the Nord Stream would just be done. It would be gone. It would not be an issue. And he was asked, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Don't worry about it." We also have Blinken, who said last week that it was a good thing that the Nord Stream had blown up. It was good for us because it's going to help people realize we don't need to be reliant on fossil fuels.
Right.
So you have nothing coming out of Russia saying that they would want to do this or go to that, but you have both the president and the Secretary of State both implying or saying this would be a good thing or was a good thing that it happened. And then I look at it and go, well, we said we would get rid of it to kind of maybe cut off a funding source for Russia, so that would explain why the U.S. would maybe do it. But then I look and say, well, Russia wants to turn off the gas. They could just turn off the gas. Why would they blow up a funding source for them? I mean, that's a moneymaker for them. What would be Russia's? That's what I'm kind of going. What's their motivation? They could just turn it off, like they did not too long ago in one of their refineries. They just said, "Oh, we're doing maintenance. We got to shut everything off." Why blow it up? I just don't get it.
Why the response I would give to that one is it removes them from under the pressure of turn it back on. You're hurting these people. Turn it back on. That removes that pressure that they're being the bad guys. Well, we can't turn it on. The lines don't work. There's no way to get it there. Sorry. We'd love to turn it back on for you. Give us, more rubles. We'll turn it right back on. But now we can't. It's done.
I heard that it's only going to take a week to fix it. I heard a report last week. They said they could have it repaired in a week. I don't know. I don't know if they got some Flex Seal or something. I mean, maybe they got some Flex Seal on there. They send that dude down there, smack that shit on there, make a great commercial, right? That would be awesome commercial.
If that guy would do it, he would make a commercial out of it. I said, listen, give us a chance. We'll go down, put some Flex Seal on there, and we'll fix it.
That's it. I mean, maybe that would do it. Yeah, it's just I don't know. I don't know what other countries would be. To me, it's either U.S. or Russia, right? There's no one else. Norway's not going to do it. Sweden's not going to. UK's not. None of the countries in Europe are going to go do
North
that.
Korea, they did it. That's it.
Could. Yeah, but they would They would want. He would want to make sure everyone knew it because he wants the press. But I mean, it's got to be one of the two. I can't see any other nation state that would benefit either directly or indirectly from this happening. Right. I just, unless, you wanted to say maybe Ukraine did it because they wanted to just make Russia look that much worse and look bad. I guess there is a slight chance of that, but I think they're probably focused on just taking back territory and regions and probably not going to that extreme. But that would be.
You know what? You don't have to send a submarine down there to do that anymore. You can do it with a couple of $1,000s worth of, remote pilotable, underwater drones, send it down there with a charge and blow it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm saying definitely not hard to do logistically, but just motivation wise, America or Russia, maybe Ukraine, just to make the world, be up against Russia, which I think it's a slight chance because the world, no one's really in Russia's back pocket. I mean, everyone's already kind of mad at Russia anyway. So, it wouldn't be that, but so I think a slight chance of them. It's got to be one of the other two, and sadly, I can't rule out U.S. Just because of what our own president has said. I don't know, but yeah, I was just wondering what your thoughts were on it. Again, you're a lot smarter in this stuff than I ever will be. So, your thoughts were.
Hey, I had one thing I wanted to ask you about. Let's just switch it up real hard. Let's do some hunting stuff. You've never done anything up in Alaska. Have you ever had a tour up in Alaska?
Yeah, I lived there 10 years, dude.
Which area? Were you up in like Richardson? Or?
Yeah, I was in Anchorage. I was at Fort Rich. Yeah, I got.
You on 25th ID?
No, I was 6th ID. I was the Jumpin' Jews. No, I was back in the day.
Did you ever do anything out in the Aleutians? Did you ever go out on the islands?
I was in I hunted in Kodiak. I didn't hunt out in the islands. I hunted in Kodiak. I hunted Colette, Iliamna, Whittier. I got 2 bears on the wall, caribou. I mean, hunting was all I did, and fishing.
Well, a buddy of mine, I just recently found out, served in Adak, where I did a stint a couple of times.
That's way out there.
That's
way out there.
It's way, way out there. I'm wanting to go out and do a hunting and fishing trip out on Adak. I don't know if any of your listeners have ever been out on those Adak, Shemya, Kamchatka, those places out in there. Desolate does not describe it at all. Mm-mm. Yet they have these caribou and fishing trips. They're no longer bases for U.S. forces.
Nope.
They're now open if you can get out there, and they have guided tours out there about going up and doing a hunting trip. It's a 8-hour flight out of Richardson just to get to Adak.
Yeah, it's way out. I mean, there's a lot closer places and easier places to hunt in Alaska for the same stuff, but obviously it's the thrill of hunting way out there on the Aleutians, and you are way. I mean, it's long and expensive to get out there, and then you got to fly you and all your crap and all your meat back, assuming you're successful. Yeah, I mean, it's a hunt. If it's one thing to be stationed out there and being able to do that as part of being stationed here, but to do it on your own, yeah, that would be quite a trip.
About $4,500 a person, he tells me, to go out there right now, and that doesn't include your airfare.
Right. Yeah, that's your gear, because they usually want to have the stuff already. Otherwise, you got to fly it in. Then you also got to tip them, and that's a good chunk. And then that doesn't count flying, like say the airfare, and then flying all your stuff. Flying any meat, horns, whatever else back. Right. Yeah. It can get, and then you got to get back. Then you got to get back to the States. Right, lower 48. So you're probably knocking somewhere around $6,000 to $10,000.
Wow.
I would imagine.
But what a trip!
What
a trip to go out there.
That's why I went up there with Active. I got out and stayed up there because I loved. I mean, you were in paradise up there. I mean, New York, an Alaskan resident, you can take 5 caribou a year just off your regular hunting license. You don't need extra tags. You don't need anything. You can hunt grizzly. You can hunt BlackBerry, all that stuff just by being a resident. But non-residents, you got to pay for all that stuff extra. Yeah, but
Wow.
yeah, I loved it. It was great. I never thought I was going to come back to lower 48. I didn't want to. Work brought me back here. That's why I got out of active. I mean, I got extended, and then they gave me orders for Bragg, and I'm like, I'm not going to Bragg. And I got out. I said, no, I'll stay right here. But then I got back to lower 48 anyway. So, and then I came to the socialist state of New York. So, but yeah. So let me know how it goes. Keep up with if you're looking to go somewhere else or whatever. It's an awesome. It's a definitely but should be on everyone's bucket list, and not right on a cruise line up there and go have them take you around everything. Just go up there and just whether you go sightsee or go hunt or fish, it's a once in a lifetime thing for a lot of folks for sure. But,
awesome.
Yeah, my buddy Doug, who's always in the show gear for grunts. Doug and I were stationed up there together. He was actually my platoon leader, so we were up there a long time ago. So, yeah. Hey, what else we got? We've been going about an hour and 15 minutes. Any other topics that we didn't hit on? You want to hit on?
Hunter Biden is back in the crosshairs again.
Ooh, yeah. Speaking of crosshairs, nice pun. Yeah. For taxes. I just saw this news story. Do you know there's a stabbing spree in Vegas today on the Strip?
Yeah, two people dead from that one?
2 dead, 6 injured at 11:30 this morning, right on the Strip, right in front of the Wynn. Yeah, somebody.
Oh, in front of the Wynn. Ow.
Yeah, it wasn't like in a sketchy part of Vegas. It was in a nice part of Vegas. And I guess they were what do they call them? Like the dancing girl. What do they call them?
The card flippers. Are the card flippers getting a little too crazy with?
They were like the performers, the dancing, the showgirls. They were the showgirls taking
the buskers, you might say.
Like the showgirls, they go out and take pictures with tourists and all that kind of stuff. They're trying to pull them into the casinos. Like it was them, where they're all done up with the feathers and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was happened in Vegas today, man. Just crime is just getting out of control. But yeah, on Hunter Biden, tax charges, the gun charges. Foreign
somebody
lobbying.
Just sent me something about his permit application. Apparently that was what was sent out, which is absolutely incredible. I'm trying to figure out, here what they're showing me on my device about his permit application. I guess that's where they're going to get him.
Oh, on the gun permit?
Yep.
Yeah, because when you do that, I forget the form number, but when you do that federal form about drug use and drug charges and all that kind of stuff, he had to say no, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to buy it, right? So he purposely falsified his information on there. But they're also looking at various tax and foreign lobbying violations along with those false statements. So yeah, that is they're saying. I mean, this started picking up today, right? They were saying it's hitting a critical stage. I mean, I think people are either leaking stuff on purpose or for whatever reason or they're trying to give someone a heads up. But it sounds like that dude better stay in the U.S. number one, since they leaked this out. But it sounds like they're going to be bringing charges up. Man, what an interesting position that's going to put the president in. It's one thing to have your brother or a family member after you get out of office be looked at or investigated or whatever, but something else when it's your son.
Nobody F's with a Biden. I mean, he said it directly. No one F's with a Biden.
That's right. He said it in Florida just yesterday. Yeah, it's and not to count that we got that. Man, I like to see a double whammy. I would like to see some stuff come out of the Durham probe that supposedly is winding down. That'd be a nice one to drop here right in the next week or so, 30-something days out. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
But it's that time of season. It's always the October surprise. There's something getting ready to drop.
2 things happen in October: the market tanks, and which it started in September. Just to give you a heads up.
Well, the market can't tank much more than it already has this year.
You're going to jinx us. Don't say that. Yeah, October surprise in politics, and the market always does the worst it ever does in October. Yeah, it's just, as much as we've seen in politics in this country over the last 5 to 6 years or more years for sure, but really volatile since Trump came into office or during that campaign season. I think it's just going to continue to get worse and worse. The only thing, and I've been saying it on the show for 6 months, the only thing that's going to save us is that both houses flip to a veto-proof majority. and we can actually get something done. We don't have a lame duck, impudent president and administration and government for the next 2 years. That, you know, it has to be veto proof, and the GOP needs to stick together and pass and do real investigations and pass real laws and knock out some of these, you know, crazy number of executive orders and actually start doing something. Then the American people will say, okay, my government's back working for me. But if they do not pass veto proof, and one house, and even if both houses flip GOP and they can't get over that, it's going to be 2 years of absolute BS. For sure.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
It will be accusations, counter accusations, all back and forth. House investigates one thing, Senate investigates another thing. It will not be good.
Yeah. It's
it would stalemate for 2 years. That's all it's going to be.
Right. So, you know, you can only hope and pray that the American people en masse are paying attention to that and realize that. So when these states that they claim are definite blue are not going to flip and all this kind of stuff, that those people in those states, no matter how small or big, like they are making that much difference to this country on the national, if not international stage. It has to be at that level. You know, it's and they got to trust that the GOP, and we all do, will come in there and act with, you know, on the best of the constituents in this country, and not of lobbyists or billionaire financiers or anything like that, and not just because the head of their party told them to, but actually do real things and put real laws into place and that kind of stuff. Right? This is their chance. They had the mandate before when Bush was in office, when the GOP controlled both houses and the presidency. They had the mandate. They've had it a few other times. I think they had it when Trump was in office too, the first 2 years.
Yep, when Trump was in office, they sure did.
This is their chance to prove themselves. If they really want to make a difference and really want to win over the American people, it's to show that they're there for seriously. If they want to rebuild their reputation, it's Congress has to show and start doing things that demonstrate and prove to every doubter in America that they're there for them and they're going to do the right thing for the country, not for their party.
Do you carry any Twitter stock? Are you looking at a bonus coming up here as that gets purchased off?
I don't talk my financial stuff on here, but no, I'll tell you, I don't hold any Twitter stock now.
Well, you know, it would have been a good time like Tesla, because if Twitter and Musk ends up taking over Twitter, as it's been projecting, you know, that it's back on, although I guess it's tomorrow that the trial may go on as planned. But here we go again. That's going to be, you know, they're already heading for the exit. Some of the employees saying if Musk takes it over, they don't want to be there.
Yeah, maybe it open up some job opportunities. Maybe better than stock. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't even been. I was watching it for a while. But yeah, the market itself is just doing absolutely horrible. I mean, if I can give any of our listeners and viewers any bit of advice, is if you have a 401k or SEP account or anything like that, just shred it. Just don't even look at it. You're going to be sick to your stomach if you see what you've lost this year. I sadly can tell you I did. I looked and it's not even worth it.
Well, even the international stock accounts aren't going to be. Usually when the U.S. economy is going down, you slide them over to international stocks. You find some haven there, or vice versa. That's not even a haven this year.
No, not at all. I mean, you know, the market, Dow Jones is down 346 today, NASDAQ down 75, stock exchange down 174. And if you go back, look over the last year, it's just nonstop. I mean, it's gone nothing but down. I'm looking at all three right now, and it's horrible. Yeah. So, no. So no Twitter stock for me, but you know, I wish I would have got on that, Apple, and a whole bunch of other ones like eons ago. If I could go back in time when I was a young soldier, you know, maybe spending a little bit more money on that and not at the local watering holes outside of Fort Hood or anywhere else I was stationed, probably would have been a better thing, because Summer on main stage probably didn't need my money as much as I thought she did. So I just outed myself, but
invest in some fruit company, as Forrest Gump said.
Yes, that's it. But anything else, my friend? Anything else you want to cover that we didn't cover?
No, you've hitting all my good highlights today, my friend. It's been wonderful.
Man, almost hour 23 in. So yeah, we've been going for a while. Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, watching and listening, whether you're doing it live or you're doing it after the fact. Thank you for joining us tonight here on episode 300. We're really turning a lot of political talk, and I'm kind of afraid the Hunter Biden stuff, with everything else, as polls come out, as early voting starts and all that stuff, we may be a little heavy on that for the next 30 days. We'll have to see.
It's only 4 shows, man. Three before and 1 after.
Yeah. So we'll.
It's not that many.
That's right. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah. And then we're going to be in the November and Thanksgiving and hunting season. So 4 shows until I'm really hunting a lot. That's good. I like that. I'll look at it that way. But all right. Well, thank you so much, John, for coming on. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in here on Stu and the Nunn. Be sure to join us next Thursday, 8 o'clock Eastern, here on Stu and the Nunn. And with that, as I get all my technical stuff ready to go here, wish you all good night, John. Thank you, and thanks for joining us tonight.
I love being on. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, man. All right, everyone, thank you so much, and you guys, everyone, have a great night. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.